In the deep past, long before alarms buzzed or screens glowed into the early hours, there was only the rhythm of the earth, the rise and fall of the sun, the whisper of the wind across the grass, the slow cycle of seasons guiding every life beneath the northern skies. Among the pine forests and windswept coasts of ancient Scandinavia, the Viking people lived in close harmony with the natural world. And as strange as it may sound to us now, the way they slept, simple, unhurried, and sacred, may have offered a better rest than many of us experience today. There were no clocks in the Viking world, no artificial light to stretch the day long past sundown. When night came, it came in full. The hearth fire burned gently, casting a warm, flickering glow across the wooden walls of the longhouse. Outside, darkness settled over the land like a woolen cloak. Stars blinked above, cold and clear. And inside, families slowly laid down their daily concerns, wrapped in furs and straw-filled mattresses, letting sleep take them. The Vikings followed what we now call segmented sleep. It was natural for them to sleep in 2 shifts. After sundown, they would rest for a few hours, wake for a short time in the middle of the night, perhaps to tend the fire, speak softly, or even reflect or pray, and then return to sleep again until morning. This pattern mirrored their environment. In winter, nights were long and dark. In summer, shorter and brighter. The body followed, adjusting with ease. This was sleep without pressure. There was no expectation to fit rest into a narrow window, no need to optimize it or measure it. Sleep came when it came, as naturally as breath. Their homes supported this peace. Longhouses were quiet, low-lit, and shared by extended families. While space was limited, warmth and safety were abundant. Thick walls of earth and timber blocked the wind. Thatched roofs held in the heat. Animal skins and woolen blankets wrapped sleepers in a kind of silence that modern life seldom allows. Imagine now the quiet within a Viking home at night. A soft creak of wood, the rhythmic breathing of those asleep nearby, the faint hiss of embers collapsing into ash, no hum of traffic, no buzz of a phone, only the sounds of the night. And outside, the landscape itself lulled the world to sleep. Snow muffled the forest, water lapped gently at the fjord's edge, owls called from the treetops, and the wind, when it moved at all, sighed like a great beast dreaming. Sleep in the Viking age was not an interruption in life. It was part of it. It was honored, allowed, protected. Even the gods rested. In Norse myths, the gods are mighty and fierce, but they also return to their halls to feast, to rest, and to dream. The idea of rest was woven into belief. Sleep was not weakness. It was a return to balance. Compare this to today. Our cities glow long past sunset. Screens mimic daylight long into the evening. We fight our natural rhythms with caffeine, blue light, and relentless distraction. We fill the quiet moments with noise, the stillness with urgency. And we wonder why sleep escapes us. But perhaps the Vikings can remind us of something we've forgotten. That rest does not need chasing. That silence is not emptiness. That night is not the enemy of productivity, but its companion. So let us begin this journey into ancient rest, not with charts or facts, but with calm, with the memory of a time when humans slept with the earth, not against it. In the chapters to come, we will walk further into Viking life, into their homes, their habits, their beliefs about dreams and spirits, and their nightly rituals. We will learn not only how they slept, but why it worked so well. But for now, close your eyes and imagine a longhouse warmed by fire, a family settling beneath heavy blankets, the night outside deep and dark, but not frightening, simply quiet. You hear the soft exhale of sleep begin, and you follow it, back into the deep, unhurried rhythm of the world's as it once was. In the heart of a Viking village, where the air was thick with the scent of pine smoke and the muffled hum of nature's breath, stood the longhouse, a structure of simple design and profound purpose. It was here, beneath sloping wooden beams and sod-covered roofs, that the Viking people found shelter, rest, and a rhythm that aligned with the earth itself. At nightfall, the longhouse became a sanctuary. There were no artificial lights to stretch the day longer than it wished to be. As the sun dipped behind the hills and twilight deepened into darkness, the fire at the center of the home glowed softly. Its flickering warmth cast dancing shadows along the wooden walls, and the day's activity slowed into silence. Unlike modern homes with rigid divisions between rooms and people, the longhouse was a shared space. Families, livestock, and tools lived together beneath one roof. Sleep was not a private, solitary experience. It was communal, woven into the fabric of kinship. Children curled up beside parents, wrapped in furs. Elders whispered stories from straw beds. Even the animals settled into the warmth, their breathing slow and steady, adding to the steady pulse of life. This closeness had a rhythm. It wasn't loud or chaotic. It was alive. The firelight helped regulate sleep in a natural way. Its orange glow did not suppress melatonin like today's blue light screens. Instead, it nudged the body toward drowsiness with every hour that passed. As the embers dimmed, so too did the need for wakefulness. And when the fire crackled low, the night invited rest. There was little noise to fight against, no hum of electronics, no streetlights glaring through windows. Outside, only the occasional howl of the wind or the soft hoot of an owl reminded the sleepers that the world was still turning. These sounds were not intrusions. They were lullabies offered by the land. The longhouse itself was built with care, using thick wooden planks and earthen insulation. It breathed with the seasons. In winter, the low ceilings and central hearth preserved heat. In summer, ventilation through the roof let the night air cool the sleeping space. Though not luxurious by today's standards, it was effective and deeply harmonious with nature's cycles. Bedding was humble but sufficient. Soft moss, hay, or straw padded the ground. Furs from reindeer or bear layered on top. Each bed was nestled low, close to the earth, anchoring the sleeper in the primal safety of ground and warmth. There were no memory foam mattresses, no synthetic fabrics, only the textures of the forest and the feel of home. But what made Viking sleep truly sacred was not the materials, it was the mindset. Before rest, there were rituals. These were not formal ceremonies, but quiet acts of closure, a small prayer to the land spirits, a whispered thank you to the fire, a glance at the stars if one stepped outside. Vikings lived with the awareness that every breath, every day was a gift, and sleep was no exception. They believed in dreams, not just as stories of the mind, but as signs. A dream could carry a message from an ancestor, a god, or a distant memory. Sleep was not a shut door. It was a passageway to insight, to intuition, to the otherworldly. And so they welcomed it. Imagine now a winter night in a Viking longhouse. The wind is howling outside, brushing against the wooden walls. Inside, the fire is down to coals. The smell of wood smoke and wool hangs in the air. All around, soft breathing. A child stirs in her sleep and settles again. A father shifts slightly, his arm resting protectively across his kin. A mother murmurs a prayer to Freya beneath her breath, her eyes half closed. Nothing is urgent. Everything is held in stillness. This was not sleep stolen between emails or forced by pills. It was sleep earned by labor, soothed by community, and aligned with the stars and seasons. And when morning came, it came slowly. There were no alarms, no sudden beeps, only the light beginning to change through the roof slats, the rustle of someone stirring, the familiar smell of smoke rising again. Vikings woke as they slept, with presence, and in this presence, they found something we are only beginning to reclaim. The truth that good rest is not a luxury. It is a relationship with body, with space, with silence. As you drift now, feel the warmth of the longhouse. Hear the wind outside, but know you are safe within. Let your breath slow. Let your limbs grow heavy. You are not alone. You are surrounded by fire, by kin, by peace. And the night, dark, deep, and ancient, is watching over you. Long before clocks divided time into rigid pieces, before alarms interrupted dreams and screens made the night bright, the Vikings lived by the rhythm of the seasons. Their lives, their labors, and their sleep flowed with the great turning of the earth and sky. In the Viking world, time was not something to manage. It was something to move with. The lengthening of days in summer, the long shadows of winter, all of this shaped how people lived, worked, and rested. Sleep wasn't scheduled by the hour. It was guided by the land, the sun, and the needs of the body. In the deep winter months, when darkness lingered like a long sigh, sleep came early and often. The sun might rise late and disappear by mid-afternoon. In this time, families drew close to the hearth. They slept longer, not in a single, unbroken stretch, but in natural phases. Many scholars believe the Vikings, like other early peoples, practiced what we now call segmented sleep. This meant sleeping in two parts. A first sleep, soon after darkness fell, followed by a quiet waking period in the middle of the night, perhaps for prayer, storytelling, or simply watching the fire, and then a second sleep until morning. This pattern mirrored the natural ebb of melatonin and the body's deepest instincts. In that gentle waking time, there was no rush, no guilt, no anxiety, only stillness. Perhaps a dream was remembered, or a star observed through the cracks in the roof. And then, as tiredness returned, the body welcomed the second descent into slumber. In the summer months, the rhythm changed. The sun barely set in the far north. Fields and forests demanded labor, and energy pulsed high. Sleep might be shorter, but it remained restful because it came after a day of real exertion, under open skies, free from distraction. There was no expectation to sleep exactly 8 hours, nor shame in napping when needed. A sailor resting beneath his sail, a farmer dozing in the shade of a tree. Rest came when the body asked for it, and life made space for that request. This harmony with the environment, meant that sleep supported, not opposed, daily life. Imagine now the slow days of early spring, when light returns gradually to the north. Snow still covers the hills, but water begins to run again beneath the ice. A Viking household wakes slowly. There is no rush to leave the warmth of bedding. Outside, the world is still wrapped in gray, but inside the fire is burning, and the smell of morning porridge fills the air. There is no artificial light to shock the senses, no traffic outside, just the low murmur of voices and the crackling of kindling. Children stretch and yawn. A dog shifts at the foot of a bed. Someone rises to stir the embers, adding fresh wood to coax new flames. Sleep gently fades into wakefulness. In this way, the transitions of the day felt soft, natural. There were other cues the Vikings used to mark time, more poetic than precise. The movement of birds, the pattern of shadows, the scent of the air before rain. These signs told them when to begin a journey, plant a seed, or take rest. There was trust in the body's knowledge, a kind of wisdom we've nearly forgotten. And because their lives were filled with physical labor, Viking sleep was often deep and untroubled. Days spent rowing, farming, walking, building, all under the open sky, meant their bodies welcomed rest with readiness, their muscles tired, their minds clear. Unlike today, when sleep can feel like a battleground between stress and stillness, for the Vikings, it was a return to the self, to the home, to the cycle that pulsed in soil and sea and sky. Even dreams, when they came, were met with curiosity. Were they messages from the gods, visions from ancestors, omens of change? Dreaming wasn't a forgotten byproduct of sleep. It was part of their spiritual world. To sleep, for a Viking, was not to retreat. It was to reconnect. And now, as you lie still, you too can feel that rhythm. You don't need to count hours. You don't need to chase productivity. You are part of something older, deeper. Breathe in the quiet of early spring. Feel the hush of snow beyond the walls. Hear the low hum of fire. Let your thoughts drift like mist through the trees. Because here, there are no deadlines, only time, and it's moving with you, not against you. As day gave way to dusk in the Viking world, something ancient stirred, not loud or commanding, but soft and steady. Evening was not a time of closure. It was a passage, a gentle turning from the labors of day toward the inward quiet of night. And this turning was marked with ritual. Before sleep came, there was fire, not just for warmth, but for presence. The hearth at the center of every longhouse was more than a place to cook or gather. It was a sacred space, a flickering connection between past and present, between family and the divine. As twilight deepened, families sat near the embers. Children listened as elders spoke, not in haste, not as distraction, but as remembrance. Tales of gods and giants, ancestors and omens were passed from voice to ear. These weren't simply stories. They were living threads in a tapestry of identity. And listening was its own kind of slowing down. The rhythm of these moments invited the body into stillness. In many homes, simple rituals accompanied the end of the day. A bowl of broth shared, hands washed with cold stream water, a short prayer murmured to the land spirits, or perhaps to Frigg, goddess of home and motherhood. The fire would be banked, not fully extinguished, but covered, left smoldering, so its warmth could linger through the dark. The sleeping arrangements were humble but intentional. Straw-filled mattresses, soft furs, thick woven blankets. People slept together for warmth, connection, and safety, not alone, not apart. There was comfort in closeness, parents and children resting side by side, a loyal dog at the feet. Sometimes visiting travelers or neighbors shared space too, snoring, shifting, breathing. This was the song of sleep in a Viking longhouse. It wasn't silent, but it was deeply human. There were no glowing screens, no midnight interruptions, just the pulse of firelight dancing on the walls and the slow exhale of a day well spent. Many longhouses were built with carved wooden pillars, often inscribed with runes or symbolic patterns. These sacred carvings watched over the sleepers, much like the gods they honored. In some households, small tokens were kept near the bed: Thor's hammer, a carved figurine, a pouch of protective herbs. These were not superstitions. They were gestures of connection, acts of faith. Some Vikings believed that dreams could carry messages from the spirit world. So sleep was not a break from life, but an extension of it, a continuation, a place where the veil grew thin and insights might come from distant ancestors or the whispers of gods. When a dream disturbed the night, it might be shared in the morning, not dismissed, but considered. What did it mean? What did it want to say? There was a reverence for sleep as a sacred cycle, not something to be conquered or hacked. In fact, the very concept of fighting with sleep would have been foreign to them. They didn't need blue light filters or sleep trackers. They had rhythm, ritual, warmth, and above all, respect. Even the layout of the home helped to ease the body into slumber. The longhouse was a single, elongated room, its walls thick with sod and wood. Light entered only during the day, and darkness fell naturally. There was no separation from the outside world, but also no constant intrusion. It was quiet, not silent, of course. Wind brushed the roof, owls called from the trees, perhaps wolves howled from across the valley. But this soundscape was familiar. It was part of life, and in that embrace of nature's rhythm, the mind found ease. Imagine now the last ember glowing in the hearth, the longhouse dark, except for the faint orange pulse of coals. A mother adjusts a fur over her sleeping child. A father whispers a final blessing in Old Norse, touching the wooden charm above the bed. Outside, snow falls gently against the roof. Inside, breath slows. There are no glowing clocks, no buzzing phones, no emails to check. Only presence, only stillness, only the sacred pause between one day and the next. If we listen closely, we can still feel that world, a world where evening was not escape, but return, where sleep was not delay, but offering. So as you settle in, let yourself return to that rhythm. Feel the weight of furs. Hear the soft crackle of remembered fires. Let the hush of the old gods rest on your skin like snowfall. You are safe, you are surrounded, and the night is not a place of fear, but of deep, ancient peace. As the sky slowly lightened over the northern lands, long before the sun crowned the horizon, the Viking world stirred not with alarms or urgency, but with breath. Morning did not arrive all at once. It unfolded, first in the chill that crept into the longhouse, then in the scent of the rekindled hearth, and finally in the shifting of bodies, the quiet murmur of voices, the rustling of wool and fur. There was no frantic rising, no rush to appointments or screens. The day began simply and slowly, as all things in nature do, and just as sleep came with ritual, so did waking. One might begin with a few words whispered into the morning air, perhaps a small thanks to the gods for safety through the night, a splash of cold water on the face from a wooden bowl, a bite of dried fruit, or a sip of warm broth by the fire. These were not chores, they were grounding, a way to remind the body where it was, and the spirit who it was. Outside, the world was equally gentle. Frost might sparkle on the grass, or mist drift across the fjord. The cry of a raven might echo from a pine-covered slope. These sounds didn't startle, they belonged. They signaled the world's waking as well. And in that harmony, the day began. Unlike in our time, where artificial lights flip night into day with a switch, the Vikings lived inside the earth's true rhythm. Dawn and dusk mattered, moonlight and starlight held power. And when the days were short and cold, they didn't resist, they adapted. In winter, waking was slower, more deliberate. The fire was built before anything else. Light, warmth, and food, these were the first concerns. And when the longhouse grew warm again, tasks began, weaving, mending, carving, preparing for the day's travel or chores, all shaped by the season's pace. There were no caffeine-fueled mornings, no barrage of digital noise, just breath, movement, and presence. This return to the day was not a break from sleep, but a continuation of the circle, because in Viking life, everything flowed, day to night, work to rest, body to spirit, and back again. They didn't compartmentalize or isolate these states. They let one carry into the other. Even in the stories they told, this circle was honored. The gods themselves rested. Odin wandered not in ceaseless action, but in search of stillness and wisdom. Frigg ruled not with thunder, but with calm and care. The sacred trees, the stones, the waters, they too had their quiet times. Everything, even power, had its rhythm. This understanding shaped how they lived. Midday was a time of strength and labor. Evening, a time of gathering and reflection. Night, a time of rest and dreaming. Morning, a return to intention, not ambition, but connection. To wake in the Viking way was not to be thrown into action, but to be welcomed back into the web of life. And always, there was the fire. It burned in the center of the home, just as the sun rose in the center of the sky. Its heat pulled people in. Its light reminded them of their ancestors, their gods, their place in the long chain of memory. Children were taught to tend the fire gently, with reverence. It was not only warmth, it was spirit. So when you imagine a Viking waking, don't picture a warrior leaping into battle. Picture instead a hand reaching quietly for a carved talisman, a breath taken at the door before stepping into snow, a song hummed while stirring the pot. These were not grand gestures, but sacred ones. In today's world, we often wake too fast, pushed by schedules and screens, but we can still remember. We can still choose softness. We can still, in our own way, honor the return to light. Imagine waking like a Viking, with the sun, not the clock, with a breath, not a buzz, with presence, not panic. Because the wisdom of the Viking night wasn't just in how they slept, but in how they rose, quietly, fully, aligned with the turning earth. And when their day ended, they would return again, not exhausted, but ready, ready to enter the hush, to slip once more into fur and firelight, into dreams that spoke in the old tongue, into the arms of the gods who watched over sleep and waking alike. So, dear listener, may you carry this rhythm with you. May your nights be deep. May your mornings be gentle. And may you remember that sleep is not the absence of life, but its sacred center,